Hey guys, Matt of Zero's Play Heroes here, and today we're reviewing the newest release, Cuphead. Alright, let's get into it. As I play one of the, if not the most remarkably pretty and aesthetically pleasing games of 2017, I can't help but notice that I'm getting my ass handed to me by a bevy of authentic 1930 cartoon serials. Scenery, animation, soundtrack, intro songs, and uniform design cues brilliantly recapture all of the glory of a long-forgotten era of animation. At times it is actually hard to remember that you are still playing a game, and your little avatar, the titular Cupman, is being absolutely walloped by psychic carrots, shape-shifting blimp ladies, and a sunflower playing to tunes that are just addictive. And to the point where you kind of relish that you get to hear those soundtracks again as you die over and over again in the stages. And dying is something that will happen a lot. It happens a whole bunch in this game. As a gamer myself that is on the more casual end of that spectrum, than say your hardcore punish me more type players, I did struggle acclimatizing to the simplified yet difficult gameplay that Cuphead presented. At times, the stunning visuals and the seriously incredible soundtrack, it seemed to get in the way of gameplay, hiding any movements and or some of the sonic cues. Many people have come out praising the difficulty of this game, and for that I completely understand, and for those of the more masochist angle, may find that Cuphead will kick your ass back to the 30s for the price of admission, but the challenge is still kind of fair. Now, before I get too far in, I want to make a big note here. This, a fantastic, albeit brutal exemplar of game making done right with passion and effort and detail, can be had for 20 bucks. I bought Cuphead, one of the biggest hype games of the year, a game that for its most part was selling Xbox Ones on exclusivity for 20 Australian dollars. And I got this from GOG.com, and that's worth a plug on its own. Now, this is less than, say, a third of the price of most major releases at the moment, and I want to remind everyone that it doesn't need to be a $60 release to be a great game, and this is a masterful example of follow-through in regards to vision and design. Now, with that out of the way, let's break down Cuphead. Simply put, Cuphead is a side-scrolling platformer of the Metroidvania vein. Yeah, Metroidvania vein. Whew. With elements of bullet hell mixed in with steep difficulty, matching of pattern recognition, and twitch reactions. Now, remembering Cuphead as a game first, the gameplay has been for the most part tightly controlled with very good game mechanics, with some minor issues regarding hitboxes and the occasional frame rate drop. Now, remembering that any technical issues that I may have experienced should be taken with a grain of salt, as your experience may vary, it could be patched out. However, I felt as though it was pertinent to mention these here, as these were experienced on the launch day. Now, the control mechanics are simple and easy to pick up, however, it does take a little bit of adjustment for those regarding a change in the way that platforming is completed. So there's no Mario-esque jumping on enemies here, and that's something I wanted to mention because I lost a lot of lives doing that. Now, the gameplay itself is split into 3 larger overworld maps, similar to your Super Mario 2s. Now, in each one of these overworld maps, there are stages within them, either being of boss battles, which is the majority of the stages, or the occasional platforming section that's been peppered in there as well. There is a shop available where you can buy upgrades for your characters, and there's some like flavor characters who sit around, give a bit more of that world build and some hints of how to do certain actions. Now, in regards to the boss battles, a majority of this game, and when mentioning difficulty previously, it would be remiss to completely ignore the fact that there are difficulty options in regards to those boss battles. Those options being simple and regular, at least at the start of the game. However, simple mode does not actually allow you to advance past world map stages, instead requiring the successful completion of regular mode to actually allow that further advancement, which effectively renders simple mode as pretty much useless, especially if you're intending to play past the first few boss battles. This difficulty gating may harm interest from parties other than the hardcore inclined, and is possibly a detriment to those wanting to see this, everything this game has to offer, and it limits the audience. Now, Cuphead, that cheeky little celluloid protagonist, is simple to control with basic movement, being dashing, jumping, and shooting mechanics. As an added wrinkle, old Cuppy has an ability to parry, a poorly named and often suicidal button press mechanic that, when successfully timed, can nullify certain attacks, which are highlighted as pink, and builds a little bit of super attack meter. But noting that this attack that does need to be parried is still going to hurt you if you time it incorrectly. Though aiming does exist in this game, don't be confused here. This is by all accounts a spam-filled bullet hell game that, especially when in flying boss battles, feels like it has more in common with those arcade space shooters than your more accuracy-based side-scrollers, your Metroids, your Castlevanias. Now, the gun itself, identified as the old Mickey Mouse jazz hands or finger guns, is not entirely accurate, often shooting a bit off of where it appears to be aiming, sometimes not truly registering shots or hitboxes. This can be especially challenging in a game where staying alive throughout even some of the earlier stages seems truly like the cards are stacked against you, and every hit point counts. Now, as stated before, this game does not require an accurate shot as much as some dexterity for jumping and dashing while simultaneously holding down the fire button. The gun and the projectile, though, are a bit of an oddity in this title, particularly the bullet animations and the sound effects. They just sit really starkly outside of the aesthetic, and with a title that's built on such a strong design aesthetic, it just stands out. It's a gripe that I have, and it's something that's stuck with me whilst I played. Now, bosses, they have their own themed attacks and moves as well, telegraphing their intentions very shortly before performing these attacks. There are no tutorials for these boss moves, and as each new encounter brings new mechanics, you should expect to die early and often. The trappings of similar games have the trope of hand-feeding players and facing mini-bosses with lighter versions of these attacks that the main bosses will have later on, and these do not exist in this game. You will find that there are no health bars of the enemy, no real reference of how much damage you are doing, unless you move to a new mechanic or you die. Progress being teasingly provided after your demise to demonstrate how far you had come or how far you had to go. Thematically, the exclusion of these meters or heads-up displays is an apt decision by the developer. However, it feels a bit like a lost opportunity to instead lean into their impressive visuals and provide more visual stimuli demonstrating success or progress. Ragged clothes, steam escaping from vents, degradation of enemy characters, staples of the cartoons that they, the developer, are pulling so much inspiration from, feels like a bit of a lost opportunity. And in this, I find my second of the minor gripes I have with this game. Visually, there just seems to be something lacking in improving and being part of that gameplay, where the visuals aren't exactly benefiting the gameplay. But remember, this is a really minor concern of a rather masterfully polished end product. Now, to simply surmise, the gameplay is dodge, duck, dip, and spam that fire button. Now, the exceptional, with very, very little comparison to the market, visual and auditory experience. This Cuphead is the definition of a crafted gaming experience, an immersive cartoon world faithfully recreated with one of the best soundtracks in gaming history to date. Short of a very, very select handful of games, Cuphead stands atop the upper echelon. There is very little I can say about the soundtrack more than I actually recommend buying it as well. You won't be disappointed. If you enjoyed the game, if you enjoyed that side of it, I'd recommend buying the soundtrack. And certain tracks like the Die House theme and Floral Fury are just amazing, and I loved hearing those soundtracks go. Now let's go into visuals here. Everyone that saw the initial leaks of Cuphead knew that visuals were always going to be a strong point of this game. Gaming as an interactive medium is on this precipice of being discussed as an art form. Cuphead is a great example of gaming as an art form. It is visually a delight, almost to a fault, with a unique style pulled straight from the 30s, beautiful in its execution, faithfully recreated with care and nostalgic to a bygone era in a way that befits the game and its experience. This game shows care and effort and a level of detail that feels as much a love letter to its source material as it does to gaming as an interactive medium. And that said, this game proved hard to give a score to, but I will try and effectively explain my reasoning here. I've shuddered between 7s and 8s out of 10, citing this game is an absolute marvel of design both visually and sound-wise, but also noted that at the core this is still a game, and sometimes accessibility and audience engagement should be considered. My minor issues with the title could be attributed to several factors that don't really truly affect my review of the game itself. Instead of looking at what this game might be missing, this is actually a wonderful title and a true champion of the 2017 releases. That said, I've decided to give this game a very, very high 8 out of 10. Though not perfect, Cuphead knows its identity. It's a hard as nails, punishing yet exquisitely beautiful game that you either come back more simply due to the challenge or for the interactive experience. I would greatly recommend this to a good section of the gaming community, especially those of the Metroidvania persuasion, those burned by mighty number 9, and those old get-gooders of Nioh, Bloodborne, and Dark Souls faithful. This is a near classic, and it's a first game from this new developer. That on its own needed a mention, and it just shows what people can make now. You know what? This is Matt of Zero's Play Heroes. I hope you have a great day gaming. Get Cuphead. It is fan-bloody-tastic. It's all kinds of tastic. Otherwise, yeah, if you get this game, you'll have a great day gaming. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys. Bye.